News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, March 16th, 2021. Today, 2 men have been arrested in the murder of Capitol Police Officer Sicknick. Derik Chauvin's attorney has asked for a continuance and a change of venue. A Navy probe finds a contractor charged in the insurrection is a neo-Nazi. 2 big banks are refusing to expedite the $1,400 stimulus checks. Governor Reeves of Mississippi rejects Medicaid expansion for working-class constituents. And Ron Johnson says he felt safe during the insurrection because the rioters weren't Black Lives Matter protesters. I'm AG.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Hey, Dana. Happy Tuesday. How are you?
I'm well. I'm doing well. Thank you. I say that. I went to the chiropractor today. I got realigned. My ribs don't want to do what they're supposed to do. So I feel like I'm just a kvetching, like, old Jew sometimes when you're like, Dana, how was your weekend? And I'm like, let me tell you a few things.
Well, you've got rogue ribs. So
I do. My goodness. But other than that, things are good. How are you, my friend?
Good. Got my first dose of Pfizer this morning.
Woohoo!
I don't really have nothing. No soreness, really, not yet. But I also did, it was arm day yesterday, and so there could be soreness, and I don't know. It's just masked by my by my angry muscles. I don't know.
That's a possibility.
And everyone join me live on the Stereo app tonight with Andrew Torres at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern for our live, cleanup on aisle 45 thing. And then Dana and I will be live Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern for our after party, our Daily Beans after party. It's so much fun. You can sign up at stereo.com/Allison Gill. You can follow me there at Allison Gill, and you can follow Dana at DG Comedy. So that is always just the highlight of my week. I love those shows.
Do it. I can't wait.
Do it. And later in the show, I'll be joined by Luke O'Brien to discuss insurrection leader Ali Alexander. And he did an incredible piece for HuffPost on who Ali Alexander is and where he came from and how he's, in Texas and how he's been sort of cultivating this right-wing personality and then started dabbling in extremism. It's a really, really fascinating investigative piece, and I'll be talking to him later in the show. So stick around for that. We have a lot of news to get to today, so let's do it. Let's hit the hot notes. Hot notes. Everybody, lead story today. Federal authorities have arrested and charged 2 men with assaulting U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick with an unknown chemical spray during the January 6th Capitol riot, but they have not determined whether the exposure caused his death. Julian Ellie Cotter, 32 years old, of Pennsylvania, and George Pierre Tanios, of 39, of Morgantown, West Virginia, were arrested Sunday and were expected to appear in federal court on Monday. Quote, "Give me that bear shit," Cater announced to Tanios on a video recorded at 2:14 p.m. on the Lower West Terrace of the Capitol, where Sicknick and other officers were standing guard behind one of those metal bicycle rack fences. That's according to arrest papers. About 9 minutes later, after Cater said he had been sprayed with something, Cater is seen in a video discharging a canister of toxic substances into the face of Sicknick and 2 other officers. Cater and Tanios were charged with 9 counts, including assaulting 3 officers with a deadly weapon. Sicknick, another U.S. Capitol Police officer identified as C. Edwards, and D.C. police officer identified as B. Chapman. They're also charged with civil disorder and obstruction of a congressional proceeding. These charges are punishable by up to 20 years in prison. If they can connect the death of Sicknick to this chemical irritant or bear spray, then we could be looking at murder, manslaughter type charges. But right now, it's assaulting a police officer and obstructing a congressional proceeding and civil disorder. Prosecutors filed charges after tipsters contacted the FBI, allegedly identifying Cater and Tanios from wanted images released by the Bureau from surveillance video and officer-worn body cam footage. And an Army reservist charged with storming the Capitol was a well-known white supremacist and Nazi sympathizer at the Navy base where he worked as a contractor. He was even rebuked for sporting a distinctive Hitler mustache. So, real hard to spot.
Yeah.
Federal prosecutors revealed Friday that the Navy conducted its own internal investigation into Timothy Hale Cusinelli that uncovered numerous incidents where he promoted racist and sexist views. They always go hand in hand, don't they?
They do indeed.
The Naval Criminal Investigation Service, NCIS, interviewed 44 of his colleagues, and 34 of them said he held extremist or radical views pertaining to the Jewish people, minorities, and women. Hale Kussalini, 30 years old, was charged with 7 criminal counts, including obstructing a congressional proceeding, civil disorder, and disorderly conduct in the Capitol. He has not yet entered a plea. My bet is not guilty. That's my bet of his plea, not his actual standing. His defense attorney declined to comment Sunday about new details of the Navy's probe, but noted in court filings that Hale Cusinelli, not Kussalini, Cusinelli, maintains that he isn't a white supremacist.
Oh, goodness. Maybe you accidentally called him Kussalini because of Mussolini being a fascist dictator.
That's precisely why. So his name is Hale, Hale Cusinelli, but I want to call him Hale Kussalini. But that's just... he has a Hitler mustache.
34 people said he's a white supremacist, and he holds these very disgusting views of Jews, women, and minorities. Why is this SOB even allowed to be in the military with this sort of... I get very frustrated about that stuff.
Well, he's a contractor. He's a contractor.
Right. Oh, the Navy. So he's a civilian.
But I think he was an Army reservist.
Okay. That makes me feel a little better, but at the same time, if you have a known white supremacist, maybe you shouldn't hire him as a contractor on a Navy base. Okay.
Yeah, if you're walking around with a Hitler mustache, I have questions. Now, Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson on Thursday invoked
I have questions
race
about him, too.
in explaining, I have questions, about explaining his sense of safety during the insurrection, saying that he might have been concerned for his well-being had the protesters been affiliated with Black Lives Matter instead of being a largely white pro-Trump crowd. Quote, even though thousands of people, the thousands of people that were marching to the Capitol were trying to pressure people like me to vote the way they wanted me to vote, I knew those were people that love this country. They truly respect law enforcement, and they would never do anything to break the law, so I wasn't concerned. Now, had the tables been turned, he says, and he goes, Joe, this could get me in trouble, so he knew he was about to be a racist.
Yep.
Joe, I knew this could get me in trouble. Had the tables been turned and Trump won the election and those were tens of thousands of Black Lives Matter and Antifa protesters, I might have been a little concerned. Wow,
you don't say the racist asshole stuff out loud, but he sure does.
Sure did.
My goodness. Speaking of racist assholes, not the attorney for this person, but the person himself. The attorney for Derik Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer charged in George Floyd's death, asked the judge overseeing the case to delay trial and reconsider a change of venue motion, saying he was gravely concerned the $27 million civil settlement announced last week between the city of Minneapolis and the Floyd family has tainted the jury pool. So his attorney is Eric Nelson, and Chauvin said that's his defense attorney. He questioned the, quote, suspicious timing. So now, yes, he's saying that the city did this on purpose. Now, the settlement, and argued it was highly prejudicial against his client. Well, it wouldn't be if his client had not committed a crime.
The city settled.
Yeah, they settled for a reason. He called on Hennepin County District Court Judge Peter A. Cahill? Let's go with Cahill. To at least call back the jurors already seated in the case to question them to see if they had read the news of the settlement and if they could continue to be impartial in the case. He criticized members of the Minneapolis City Council and Mayor Jacob Frey, suggesting that they had intended to sway public opinion in the case. Man, this guy's got a lot of accusations, doesn't he? He was particularly critical of Frey, who also a civil rights attorney, saying, quote, he should have known better, as he mentioned that the council member Jeremiah Ellison is the son of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, whose office is handling the case against Chauvin. Now, though Nelson quickly added he was not accusing Mr. Ellis of anything. Of course he had to add that, because otherwise you would have been accusing him of something, which you weren't. Cahill didn't immediately rule on the defense request, but agreed the developments were, quote, concerning. I wish city officials would stop talking about this case so much, he said, but at the same time, I don't find any evil intent that they're trying to tamper with the criminal case.
Yes, suspicious timing. Oh,
I know.
Please.
Especially because they don't really control the timing of how these cases get handled. It's just I can't. The judge agreed that he would have to call back the seated jurors in the case, but suggested he would do so closer to the date of opening arguments because the case hasn't started. Currently scheduled for March 29th. He said he would take the other defense motions into consideration and proceed forward with jury selection in the case.
My beans are he won't allow for a change of venue or a delay.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Up next here, during the pandemic, Mississippi has had the highest COVID-19 death rate of any state outside the Northeast. And on Friday, the state's Republican governor, Tate, good old Tate Reeves, said he remained committed to denying access to Medicaid for constituents near the poverty line, even though expanding eligibility would make money available for Mississippi as a result of the COVID American Rescue Plan. He says, quote, "My position has not changed. I'm opposed to expanding Medicaid in Mississippi." He said that during a press conference covered by the Mississippi Free Press. When asked by Vox if the prospect of additional funding might make him reconsider his opposition to Medicaid expansion, he said, "No, sir, it will not." As part of Obamacare, the federal government covers 90% of the cost of expanding Medicaid to people who make up to 138% of the federal poverty line, or about $30,000 for a family of 4. 12 Republican-led senators have refused that offer, leaving about 2.2 million of their constituents without health insurance. On the top of the 90% match, the stimulus bill President Joe Biden signed Thursday would give Mississippi, the poorest state in the country, an estimated $600 million over 2 years to expand Medicaid to the roughly 200 to 300,000 people in the state who would be eligible. Nearly 60% of people who'd gain health insurance as a result of Medicaid expansion in Mississippi, by the way, would be people of color, the vast majority of which are Black people.
And those 2.2 million of their constituents without health insurance, that fuck just told them to stop wearing masks. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Kaiser Family Foundation estimated Medicaid expansion would cost Mississippi $290 million over 2 years before including the roughly $600 million in new stimulus money. In essence, Reeves is forfeiting hundreds of millions of dollars to deny his constituents health care in the middle of a pandemic. In other COVID news, Biden has said he expects 100 million shots in arms in the next 10 days. That's 10 million a day. That's absolutely incredible. And the CDC has identified multiple policies from the former guy that downplayed the pandemic. Andrew Torres and I are going to go over them in depth on tomorrow's Cleanup on Aisle 45 podcast, so tune in for that.
I wish there could be charges for this, the negligence that the administration took with so many people dying. I really hope that they find something.
Yeah.
All right. And speaking of the stimulus bill, Huffington Post reported this weekend that Americans waiting to get their stimulus checks are growing increasingly frustrated Saturday after discovering some banks won't make checks available to them for days, even if they've already been deposited by the federal government. So the Wall Street Journal reported that the official payment date for the economic impact payments is March 17th, but millions of dollars in checks had already landed in countless bank accounts by Friday, even before the weekend. 2 major banks, however, will not be getting the money to their customers as quickly as possible. Chase Bank issued a statement that it will release payments beginning March 17th. Apparently, even if the money lands in accounts earlier, and Wells Fargo, who has been in a shit ton of trouble over the last years, Wells Fargo said the same thing, that it will treat all checks arriving March 17th, whether they arrive earlier or not. So that's what they're saying the date is going to be. The move will help the banks at the expense of their customers and those seeking to see the economy regain stability. They said, and I quote, "Sluggish check processing only works to banks' advantage because of the increased float created by a massive influx of government cash. They can juggle the delays to boost outgoing loans to other customers and to boost their profits." Mm-hmm. So
yep.
That's sketchy as fuck.
Yeah. So Chase and Wells Fargo. I dropped Wells in the 90s, went over to a credit union.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting. I hate these banks. Hate. All right. We'll be right back with Luke O'Brien. We're going to discuss his piece on insurrection leader Ali Alexander right after this. So stay with us.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey everybody, it's AG and I'm here to tell you about the #1 selling language learning app called Babbel. One of my goals for this year is to learn a new language, and Babbel has made the whole process addictively fun and easy with bite-sized lessons you'll actually use in the real world. With Babbel, you can choose from 14 different languages, including Spanish, French, Italian, and German. I am right now brushing up on my Spanish and working on some French too, trying to get the pronunciation right, and Babbel has made it a breeze. Babbel's 15-minute lessons make it the perfect way to learn a new language on the go. I can take my Babbel lessons when traveling or when I'm out on my walk. Unlike the infamous language classes you took in high school, Babbel designs their courses with practical, actual, real-world conversations in mind, things you'll use in everyday life. Other language learning apps use AI for their lesson plans, but Babbel lessons were created by over 100 language experts. Their teaching method has been scientifically proven to be effective. Plus, Babbel's speech recognition technology helps you improve your pronunciation and accent. Start your new language learning journey today with Babbel. Right now, when you purchase a 3-month Babbel subscription, you'll get an additional 3 months for free. That's 6 months for the price of 3. So just go to Babbel.com and use promo code DailyBeans. That's BABBEL.com and use code DailyBeans for an extra 3 months free. Babbel, language for life. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm honored today to be speaking to investigative reporter on the extremism beat for about 4 years now. Please welcome Luke O'Brien. Luke, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. I'm happy to be here.
So you did this incredibly in-depth investigative piece on Ali Alexander, one of the leaders or the leader of Stop the Steal. And you wrote this for HuffPost, and I encourage everyone to read this piece. It's really, really incredible, all of the names and players that are involved in this. And I wanted to kick off our discussion by talking about how Ali Alexander got his start, where he came up from, and kind of who he is a little bit.
Sure. So Ali Alexander, formerly known as Ali Akbar, comes from Dallas-Fort Worth area originally, and from a very young age, he was drawn to right-wing politics. So, even back in high school, he was setting up right-wing blogs and things like that, and kind of always attracted as well to just, the sort of digital publishing space and social media, an early adopter of that. But yeah, he grew up with a single mom. He claims his father left the family when he was 2 years old, abandoned his mother and him, according to Alexander, and kind of grew up in. His mom's a lawyer in Texas, and grew up sort of with a single working mom, which I think shaped his identity. Also, not having a father shaped his identity quite a bit, and just really leaned into his right-wing politics over time. Ended up attending college briefly. He dropped out, and he got into some legal trouble. Was arrested a couple times, once for stealing some property, I think out of a van. This would have been back in 2006. And then that year he was also arrested for debit card abuse. And in 2007, 2008, he was convicted of felonies for those charges. And his future looked pretty dim. But he had a certain set of skills and a willingness to use them in a way to, engage in kind of political sabotage or press spread around disinformation. And so he found a home in the Republican Party and became a political operative. And it went from there over the years. Just he gaining access to higher and higher level people in the Republican Party.
Yeah, and at one point he even compared himself to Goebbels, but said that Goebbels didn't have his social media savvy, I think, is kind of how he put it.
Yeah, I think he compared himself to Goebbels and Lenin, actually, and which is, I don't think there's any. I don't think anyone in their right mind would compare themselves favorably to those two without some real context. He called them smart men and evil men, but then said that they actually were his inferiors in terms of social engineering. So it just kind of shows you his mindset. It was never really to be, do the right thing in politics and advocate for, democratic ideals. It was, these are two touchstones for his political career are two notorious anti-democratic figures in the world.
Yeah, and then after his little petty crime spree and dropping out of college. He joined the Republicans, as you say. He found a home in the Republican Party. And he kind of just, his whole background sort of reminds me of figures like Stone and Stephen Miller, starting early, starting in high school, and just being one of those dirty political tricksters or political dirty tricksters. And that's sort of but he became extremely dangerous. But early on, he joined the Republicans, money started really rolling in for him.
Yeah, that's true. So I think one thing to point out is that, he wasn't an extremist to begin with. That happened over time. And he was just like a political nerd. He was really into conservative politics, involved in that as a high schooler, into kind of blogging. And, this was sort of, the era when blogging was really taking off. And when social media came on the scene, he jumped right in. But it wasn't that he was pushing such extreme ideas at an early stage. I mean, he was very into his Christianity and kind of melding that to his politics, which I think has deepened and has grown extreme. I would define him as a Christian nationalist now. So there's some differences between, say, him and Stephen Miller and Roger Stone, and also a lot of similarities. I mean, there's a nationalism that is a current that runs through all of their political ideologies and kind of takes different forms for different people. Now, Roger Stone is like the political operative saboteur par excellence, in American history. And Ali Alexander, he kind of took a different pathway to start even getting close to Roger Stone in that regard, and that was through being more online. Roger Stone was a product of a different era of Republican politics, where he came to DC and had his lobbying firm, and Ali Alexander kind of came at it more from this next generation, more millennial, internet empowered kind of way. But what is interesting is that he became something of a protege of Roger Stone's. So over the years, as Alexander began to interact with more people, and as you point out, he did receive money, or the organizations that he was associated with and working for received a lot of money from these Republican billionaires, a lot of dark money coming from the Koch brothers network and the Mercer family. And these are the people who have been financing, what I think it's fair to call is just kind of a lot of anti-democratic activity in our country for many years. So there's this giant pool of dark money that's out there. And for somebody like Ali Alexander, who kind of presents a certain face for the Republican Party, a very convenient face, because he is a Black man, he is of Arab descent. This allows somebody with his extremism, and often he's working hand in glove with white nationalists, to deflect all kinds of criticism. So it was easy for him, and plus with his digital skill set, it was easy for him to kind of tap into this network pretty quickly. And then over time, what you see is that he's advancing himself and he's getting more extreme. He's doing more and more kind of political subterfuge and getting extreme. And then at some point, he intersects with the high level dirty tricksters like Roger Stone, who said, okay, kid, you kind of earned your stripes here. Come on in. Let me show you how this really works. And next thing you know, he's hanging out with him at Mar-a-Lago. And it's really this. It's a long rise, but a very, in a way, improbable rise, and in a way, a rise that once you kind of understand it, makes a lot of sense for who he is and how he got into this scene.
Yeah, and it's around that time he starts making friends in Bannon's circle, where he started, sheds his last name. He meets people like Wintrick and Matt Colligan, Cernovich, Posobiec. Can you talk a little bit about that time? Because that's what this seems to build up to the Stop the Steal 2020 switchover.
Yes. around 2016, obviously a certain political figure arrived on the scene to change everything in Republican politics. Well, not change everything, but take it to another level of extremism, and that's Donald Trump. And Steve Bannon was running his campaign at the time. So for people like Ali Alexander, who'd been kind of trying to make his bones a little bit more behind the scene, but they're trying to make money. They're trying to make their names, and they're also, becoming gradually more extreme. This is the moment. You got to get on the Trump train, right? And Alexander did not like Trump at first, and he's on the record talking about that. But when you're out for yourself and you're working these angles like that's what you do. And he built this network that was helpful for him. So he already had his network that was more kind of coming out of the Tea Party and the Koch brothers and those connections. And then Trump comes along, and Trump is changing things, particularly when it comes to social media. So you had a lot of these right-wing influencer types who it's good for them personally because they can grift off of it, but they're also helping build this pro-Trump disinformation network using social media. So Alexander, who has social media skills and a pre-existing network, kind of plugged into this very neatly and very quickly in 2016. So this is I call them just a ring of far-right propagandists that are in orbit around Steve Bannon. They have connections to Bannon, who has connections to everybody, and nationalists around the world, and other extremists. And so by 2016, Alexander is hanging out with Milo Yiannopoulos, this guy Lucian Wintrick, who became the White House correspondent for the Gateway Pundit, which is a far-right propaganda outlet that has been nothing but pro-Trump and actually was promoting all kinds of disinformation about the election. It promoted Alexander's Stop the Steal rallies before January 6th. It promoted propaganda from the Oath Keepers, whose members were involved in attacking the Capitol on January 6th. So Lucian Wintrick is a key figure. Jack Posobiec, you mentioned, is another one that he crosses paths with. Another Roger Stone protege, a dirty trickster, a guy who has amplified Russian disinformation on social media and in turn been amplified by the Kremlin extensively, and who had ties directly to the Trump administration. Mike Cernovich, yet another one of these guys who's kind of in this sort of Bannonite scene. Mike Cernovich, a real disinformation pusher who was along with Posobiec, one of the lead figures in getting Pizzagate influence operation circulating on social media that led to a gunman going into a pizza shop in DC. I mean, it's on and on and on with this far-right disinformation. That one thing I would want our listeners to understand is that it's not just about spreading lies to gain some political advantage. This is an organizational tactic. And extremism experts rightly view a lot of this disinformation and what this network pushes around as stochastic terrorism, which is you're painting a target for people who are you're whipping up a mob using the internet, social media, and you're painting a target in real life. And then you just you don't ever say, go and attack this, go and call, go and hurt this person, go and commit violence. You never say that. They know not to cross that line, but they do know as well that if you get enough people, you brainwash them on disinformation, you get them angry enough, and you say, this is the problem right here, somebody is likely to pop off. And they're aware of this, and they've been doing it for years. So you saw it with Pizzagate, and you saw it with January 6th. And it's this same network. So he dropped right into that network and started working with these people. And that network, at its top, has people like Roger Stone, kind of directing it.
Mm-hmm. And you say they know not to cross that line, but Ali Alexander walked right up to that line. And I want to continue to talk about that and the Stop the Steal rallies, the Million MAGA marches, and the insurrection as soon as we take a quick break. Would you mind sticking around?
Of course.
All right, everybody, we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. This segment of Daily Beans is brought to you by Helix Sleep. They have solved my sleep issues, given me restful nights. It's the most comfortable mattress I've ever owned. And I know some of you are sleeping on old mattresses that are not designed for you and not designed with you in mind. And you deserve better than that. So give yourself an upgrade. We've all had trouble sleeping from time to time, especially the past 4 years, right? But Helix is here to help. Helix recognizes each of us sleeps differently, and they customize the mattress to fit you in the way you sleep best. Helix Sleep created an online sleep quiz that takes just 2 minutes to complete, and they use those answers to match your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. So if you like a mattress that's really soft or firm, or if you sleep on your side or your back or your stomach, or if you sleep really hot like I do, with Helix, there's a specific mattress for each and everyone's unique taste. I was matched to the Helix Midnight because I like a medium firm bed and I sleep on my side, so it's perfect for me. And you don't have to take just my word for it. Helix was actually awarded #1 best overall mattress pick of 2019, and then again in 2020 by GQ and Wired Magazine. So just go to helixsleep.com/dailybeans, take their 2-minute sleep quiz, and they'll match you to a customized mattress that will give you the best sleep ever. And they have a 10-year warranty, 10 years, and you can try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. You will totally love it. And Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders for our listeners at helixsleep.com/dailybeans. That's Helix, Helix, sleep.com/dailybeans for up to $200 off. Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're talking to Luke O'Brien about his piece in HuffPost about Ali Alexander. And before the break, we were talking about the line that they know not to cross as far as incitement and, direct incitement, but how Alexander walked right up to that line. But with the Stop the Steal, they started to get some steam. He started to work with people like Gosar, the Republican representative from Arizona. And also mentioned in this article is Rick Grinnell. Can you talk a little bit about how they're involved?
Yeah. Well, let me handle Grinnell first because his involvement is a little more peripheral. So Alexander put together, using social media, really put together this movement called Stop the Steal. That was a slogan that was coined in 2016 by Roger Stone as a way to undermine confidence in the Republican primary, which Trump seemed like he was going to lose, and then later in the general election, which Trump also seemed like he was going to lose. And so the idea was, somebody in the deep state is trying to steal this election from Donald Trump. And so that slogan, and it was a little more than a slogan, but that's the main thing it was. In 2020, Alexander dusted that off as a way to try to invalidate Joe Biden's win in the election. And he had a network of people, some of the same people that we just talked about, that were helping him. And one of those guys is this guy named Michael Kudre, who is also a grifter, also has had some trouble with the law, and reinvented himself as a far-right influencer on Twitter. And Twitter had no problem with this, of course, and just let him kind of spread disinformation about hydroxychloroquine and other things, along with Alexander. They both spread, this voter fraud disinformation. And so Kudre had, and again, back to Twitter. Twitter was kind of like a platform, staging ground for this kind of anti-democratic attack that ended up, leading to January 6th. So you can organize people on Twitter in these DM rooms where, and the right wing and the far right, especially the MAGA people, have been doing this for years. It's how the Trump campaign kind of organized itself and got the message out in 2016, is you can just set up these DM rooms with a bunch of like-minded people, and they're basically retweet rooms. So if you drop messaging in there, you've already got a bunch of people who are just going to retweet it, amplify it, blast it out to the world, get it trending on Twitter, pop it off Twitter onto other platforms. And so it's very easy to kind of drop a message, a propaganda, like morsel into this at the top and just have it spin up. And so Kudre was running basically like a room like that featured a bunch of other far-right extremists, including a neo-fascist who was on the Kremlin payroll at one point, is a big fan of the Unabomber. And, there are people like this in this room. And then, Rick Grinnell is in there, which is shocking. And it was, I believe, he was in there at a time when he was the acting director of national intelligence.
Oh, great.
So it shows really how close people in the high-level people in the Trump administration were to this network of bad actors. Now, I should point out that anybody can put anybody else into a Twitter DM room. However, this Twitter DM room featured a lot of people who were involved in organizing Stop the Steal eventually. And Rick Grinnell is one of the key figures who spread all kinds of baseless claims of voter fraud in the 2020 election. And he refused to answer any questions when I got in touch with him about this. So that's his connection to it. And then Gosar, it's even worse. Gosar was involved from the very beginning, organizing and promoting these Stop the Steal rallies around the country, several of which turned violent. And these rallies were basically, hey, the election's been stolen, even though they had no evidence of it. And everybody who's mad about this should assemble either outside a state capitol or outside, an election center. And we should do something about it. And what really is it that they were talking about doing? This goes back to our point before, they would never articulate exactly what they thought should happen because they know that might cross a legal line. But, there's no evidence the election was stolen. This was the most secure election in the history of the country, according to people even in Trump's administration. And
Bill Barr, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so what exactly are you trying to do when you get an angry mob together outside an election center, armed, some of them armed, talking about how the election was stolen and we gotta save the country and take back the republic? It's pretty obvious what that's going to lead to, frankly. And everyone on my beat saw it. So you have Paul Gosar, this congressman from Arizona, deeply involved in making this happen and promoting it and appearing at rallies to speak even from the start. And Alexander, working hand in glove with him openly on Twitter, and Twitter allowing it to happen. And the crazy thing about Gosar is that he's got open connections to far-right extremist groups like the Oath Keepers, again, members of which stormed the Capitol on January 6th. And Gosar, even if you go back a couple of years, his extremism goes back some ways. He was caught on camera at a meeting in Europe, in London. And he'd gone there to support a far-right extremist in London who's a violent criminal. And he was caught on camera with Steve Bannon meeting with these European ultra-nationalist leaders, several of whom have worked with neo-Nazi organizations. And they were turning to Gosar and saying, hey, we need more support from people like you in Congress, in America, in America's Congress. And this stuff has been happening under everyone's noses for years. And it's frankly, it's not surprising in hindsight that it led up to January 6th. And there's just no way, Gosar's in trouble. There's no way he's not going to be in trouble because his fingerprints are on this in some fashion. I think it's just a question of can you make a case against him? Can you make a case against Alexander? And that goes back to what you were saying about speech and whether the speech actually was inciting the violence.
Yeah, and we know that the Department of Justice, before Merrick Garland got there, was looking into, and the FBI, they were investigating conspiracy charges with the Oath Keepers, and I can't imagine that leaders like Ali Alexander, Roger Stone, and Gosar wouldn't be involved somehow in that investigation. But you're right, it's just whether or not they can bring a case. Yeah,
I think if you look at the Stop the Steal movement, now, I'm not a lawyer here, right? But there's a legal standard. It's called Brandenburg versus Ohio. It's a Supreme Court case about this Klansman. There's back in the 60s, this guy named Clarence Brandenburg, who got a bunch of his KKK buddies on some farm outside Cincinnati. They all assembled, and Brandenburg started talking in very violent terms about Jews and blacks. It's the same, by the way, it's the exact same language that we hear from the far right today and many, many Trump supporters. So this guy's preaching about Jews and blacks and they're the problem in the world. And that if the government continues to, suppress white people, that there's going to have to be some kind of revenge taken. Now, he was prosecuted for this, and the Supreme Court said that his speech was protected because it did not incite, and this is the legal standard, imminent lawless action. and there had to be like a clear and present danger. This is all like legal language here. Now, in the case of Stop the Steal and Ali Alexander, you have a guy who is doing what I think is far worse than Clarence Brandenburg. I mean, he is talking about globalists, which is code, Marxists, which is code, dangerous leftists and liberals stealing an election. He's talked about revenge. He's talked about the government holding people down. He's said publicly the government should be afraid. And then he's done stuff like gotten up on a stage the day before the attack on the Capitol, where he's preaching to members of this audience, several of whom were involved in the January 6th attack and were armed at the time Alexander was talking to them. And he's chanting victory or death and things like this. And so I think you're going to have some very interesting cases that come out of this. Now, this would be, it's hard to know like what the federal prosecutors are going to do here, because right now they seem to be hyper-focused on the people who actually went into the Capitol, as they should be. And that's a huge, huge amount of work just right there. But I'm sure that they are examining these other ties, because they've got conspiracy charges against some of these guys. So they're looking at, the planning that happened before this. Hopefully they will be looking at, people who actually organized this stuff and got these people together and helped incite it. And then I imagine that we are going to see a bunch of civil suits also that come out of January 6th and might target some of the same people like Alexander or Stone or whoever.
Yeah, and Merrick Garland said during his confirmation hearings that he was going to be looking at not just the people who breached the Capitol, but leaders, organizers, and funders as well. So I'm hoping that I have faith that he'll be looking into it. Whether or not a solid case can be made, we'll see. But I'm also we're looking at these potential civil suits where discovery could bring more truth than perhaps a criminal investigation would. And now, before I let you go, Ali Alexander has not been arrested. Is that correct? He's in hiding. Am I right with that?
Look, I mean, I think it's kind of a canard that he's in hiding. Ali Alexander he's an extremist. He is also a grifter. So when he says he's in hiding and everybody's out to get him, and that he needs money as quickly as possible to pay for his massive security team, we should kind of look skeptically at that. Ali Alexander did definitely flee Washington, D.C. after the attack on the Capitol. And but has sat down for interviews with people since he's been quote unquote in hiding. I'm sure that I would like to think that our federal investigators know where he is. So I don't think he's really in hiding, but he hasn't stopped. He's talking about organizing more rallies and more events. He's trying to make money off of this. He's still an extremist. He's still trying to he's still pushing the same voter fraud disinformation. So no, he hasn't been arrested yet, as far as I know. And, he's still out there kind of like putting propaganda out. So we'll see what happens. It's hard to know, but he's not, there's no remorse. He's not taking a different tack in any way. If anything, he's angrier and is talking about getting revenge more and talking about how everybody should be afraid more of him and the people he's associated with. So, seems like something we should be a little concerned about.
Yeah, and we've seen the pattern so far with the arrest of the insurrectionists. It's easy to charge and arrest the people who broke into the Capitol immediately, and then we know that it's taking longer to build charges on the back end. For example, the murder of Officer Sicknick, or conspiracy charges, or sedition charges. Those charges take longer, and so maybe Ali Alexander wasn't at the Capitol and can't just be quick arrested for something like that, and so maybe that's what's taking time. But we'll see.
He was at the Capitol,
but I mean, he didn't go
into the Capitol. In fact, he was with Alex Jones on the steps of the Capitol as right around the time the breach of the Capitol occurred. And they claimed that they were sent down there or went down there to try to calm down the mob. And there is some video of Alex Jones trying to get people not to, do the violence because, I mean, my theory on this is they're just trying to cover their butts. I mean, they've been whipping these people up for months, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
they realize that perhaps there's some legal jeopardy for them. So they're down there, but fully aware of what's going on. That's what's so interesting too, because I begin my story hours after the violence had broken out at the Capitol. And Ali Alexander, he's changed his clothes. He's up on a rooftop observation deck, where they had seemingly planned to have a party. And he's looking down at the Capitol and he's saying, I don't disavow this. I don't denounce this. And this is 3 hours after he knew that somebody had been shot inside the Capitol and he'd watched a mob storm inside. And there was he refused to denounce the violence of the event, which I found really telling. I mean, that should be the easiest thing for anyone to do. And he couldn't do it. So, yeah, I mean, he was at the Capitol and he knew what was going on. And he helped create the conditions for that to happen. And I was trying through my journalism to make that clear and to hold him accountable in the way that I could. But we journalists can only do so much. So,
Yeah, and I agree 100%. I only meant that he couldn't be arrested for a quick and easy break-in, violent entry type of a situation that we've seen a lot of these 250, 300 insurrectionists
Correct.
arrested for initially. They're just, hopefully building a case. But I appreciate this story. It's really, really incredible. It's called How Republican Politics and Twitter Created Ali Alexander, the Man Behind Stop the Steal. It is by investigative reporter Luke O'Brien on HuffPost. I appreciate your time today, Luke. Thanks for talking to us. And I hope we can follow up again as this investigation broadens.
yeah, of course. I will likely be doing some more reporting on it. So it's been a pleasure to talk about what I've done so far.
Excellent. Excellent work. Great, incredible story. Great in the sense that it's very, very complete.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Not great at not great in the content.
It's all bad. Really, it's all bad. But,
It's all very, very bad. Very, very bad
Yeah.
work. No, I appreciate your time, though. Luke O'Brien, thanks so much.
of course. Thank you.
Everybody stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Hey everybody, it's AG, and this portion of Daily Beans is brought to you by PlushCare. With everything we've gone through in the past year, it's important to put things in perspective. I have decided my health should be my number one priority going forward, and despite everything that's going on now, it's still crucial to be able to see a doctor when you're not feeling well. That's why I use PlushCare. PlushCare provides primary and urgent health care through virtual appointments. And scheduling an appointment, even for the same day, is very easy. I just pick a slot that works for me, and I book it right online. So I don't waste any time on hold or sitting in a crowded waiting room, which can be dangerous during the pandemic. With my PlushCare membership, I can see my doctor from the comfort of my own home, wearing my jammies. And I can get diagnosed, treated, and even have prescriptions sent to my local pharmacy if needed, all within minutes. And if I have any questions before or after my visit, I can send unlimited messages to my care team, and I can do that anytime. And PlushCare accepts most major insurance carriers, and it's available in all 50 states. And with how difficult things are if you're feeling anxious, depressed, or stressed, PlushCare doctors are here to help. They can discuss treatment options and provide prescriptions as needed. I can tell you personally, my PlushCare experience has been very, very convenient, extremely user-friendly, very stress-free, and I immediately felt comfortable and confident with my doctor because all PlushCare doctors graduated from one of the top 50 medical schools in the country, and they're all highly rated by their patients, so I have peace of mind that I'm getting the highest quality health care. PlushCare makes it easy for me to get the excellent care I need when I need it. And with PlushCare, I don't put off seeing a doctor, and neither should you. No more excuses. So make your appointment today. Go to plushcare.com/dailybeans. That's PLUSHCARE.com/dailybeans. Plushcare.com/dailybeans. Hey, everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news. And the good news today, we have a lot of good stuff. We've got good news, we've got submissions, we've got photos, we've got some corrections. So if you have any submissions, if you have any corrections or photos of your pod pets, or you want us to guess the mixed breed rescue pups that you have, we call that What the Mutt, or if you have misheard song lyrics, send them in at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. Do you want to kick us off here, Dana?
I'm happy to, because this one's my fault. So this is a correction, and understandable. And I think a couple of listeners is probably a little bit being generous, because I'm sure it was much more than this. Although many issues, excuse me, in the U.S. are related to slavery, daylight savings time doesn't seem to be one of them. It was enacted in the USA in 1918 by FDR. Yes. So I do apologize for that. For some reason, when they were talking about Thomas Jefferson being one of the first people to mention daylight savings time, I equated it with something to do with slavery, which was clearly my mistake. So I will be more careful in the future, even though like I said, I think there's a tremendous amount of things in our country that need to be fixed that have to do with
That are connected
to slavery. So I do apologize for that.
And I was like, yeah, that's probably right.
I know. You're not helping me at all.
Yeah. And I have a quick math correction. Some astute listeners let us know my back of the envelope math missed the part where the $1.8 million in the dog charity paid to Mar-a-Lago was over 8 years, not 1 year. But on average, they paid about $225,000 a year, which still seems like it's probably a lot. But thank you for the correction there.
All right, so we got some of those out of the way. You want to take the first good news one?
Yeah, here we go. From Anonymous, pronouns she and her. Hey, ladies on the Beans team. I'm finally picking up the courage to share some good news. My hubby, mom, and myself are now fully vaccinated. Woohoo! It's been a year of uncertainty. I'm super thankful we've made it through and still pushing forward. Thank you to the patron who sponsored me. I will be paying it forward next year. We can also breathe a sigh of relief that the orange flea bag is no longer in the White House making decisions that will impact us for years to come. Sleeping easier knowing that there's still good people out there fighting for what's right. Attached to some pet pod tax. That's a Simi sitting on the top speaker watching my hubby as we both listen to the podcast. The other pick is our newest addition, Apollo. He has the collar, and he's a handful, constantly terrorizing his big sis, Asimi.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, that second photo. Oh, look at the happy face.
Sweet baby. Sweet, sweet baby. Oh, thank you so much for that, and I'm so glad everyone is vaccinated. If you have an opportunity to get it. All right, this next one's from John, pronouncing him. Howdy. My good news is I live in Australia. That's basically it. Every day I hear the news of my country of birth, USA, and I feel better and better about how my life turned out. For instance, I have no idea that Viennetta ice cream was not available back home. I can get it any damn time I want here in the OZ. However, they're very light on other varieties. There are only about 4 other kinds of ice cream in the stores. Also, the home of the world's greatest lady Montegreen, as every Australian and AC/DC fan knows. It's a long way to the shops if you want a sausage roll.
It's a long way to the shops if you want a sausage roll.
And what are the real words?
It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Thank you. All right. It's absolutely the truth. It is indeed a long, long way. Here's my pod pet, the very suspicious, guarded, and wary Rosalind. She jumps at every sound, keeps a constant vigilant eye on us, and routinely inspects our closets for contraband? Who knows? Thanks for all you do, and I know that things are getting better. Oh my goodness.
Oh. Peekaboo kitty.
And the window kitty.
So cute. Yeah, and you're a show-off living in Australia.
Yeah, no one likes a bragger. No one likes a bragger, Anonymous.
All right, I'm going to grab these next two here. Next up from Anonymous, pronouns she and her. Hey, Beans Queens. Here is my misheard lyric. My very beloved father was a World War II vet with a limited catalog of songs, so our lullaby roster was unusual and short. I've got sixpence. The caissons go rolling along. Is that how you say that? And Home on the Range. That was it. As a very small girl, I heard where Zelda misheard a discouraging word. Instead of where Zelda misheard. Where Zelda misheard a discouraging word. Even as a 5-year-old, I felt like this line struck an oddly melancholy note in this otherwise fun song, and I felt bad that Zelda was fooled and didn't know that someone was insulting her. Also, Perky Veterans Day Parade marching band still reduced me to messy, messy tears. Thanks for all you do. Thank you, Anonymous. And from Geek Gumbo, pronouns he and him, love the show, just found it. Anytime you want to reference Jane's Addiction or any other 80s, 90s funk alt punk band, I'm on board. Geek Gumbo, you got to go back and listen to the catalog. It's there everywhere. Just wanted to show you my buddy Beefus. Great name, pick below. A pit-esque rescue. Not picture is her sisty. Not pictured is her sister Piggy Wigglebutt. With a name like that, you don't really need a picture. Keep up the good work. Oh, look at the face.
So sweet. Beefus.
Beefus is such a good name. Beefus. Beefus and Butthead.
Beefus. Well, that would have been funny if they named the other dog that. All right, this is from MDA, pronouns she and her. Thanks for giving me my daily news with swears and having some of the most interesting and thought-provoking interviews on any podcast. This is not quite a misheard lyric, but definitely music-related. One day, many years ago, when driving with my daughter, I had a Led Zeppelin CD playing in this car stereo. She was listening and rocking out a bit in her little girl way when she turned to me and asked, "Is that Ed Zeppelin guy?" Yes, honey, that's Ed. I replied. She is now a lovely 27-year-old medical student, but she still loves to hear some Ed Zeppelin. For Pod Pet Tax, I'm including our parakeets, Amarillo, yellow male, and Luna, blue female, our little cat, Little Miss, and our dog, Jack, it's a small one, and grand dog, Lila, the big one. Continued health and best wishes to you all. That is quite the pack you have.
Oh,
the birds
look at
are
this
beautiful.
menagerie.
I know. Oh, the kitty.
Oh, sleeping void chunk in the sunbeams.
So sweet.
And he was playing with that mouse, that little toy mouse, but fell asleep in the
I
middle.
know. Just had enough. That's what happens when I try and play with things in the sun, too. Pass out.
Play, nap.
Yeah.
Probably wake up and bat it around a little bit, go back to sleep.
Basically.
So cute.
Yep.
Oh, thanks for all these, everyone. Thanks for the corrections. You guys are wonderful. Seriously, I really appreciate this. And if you have anything you want to send us, please do at dailybeanspod.com. Just click on contact. We'll take care of it for you. No problem. And yeah, thanks to all of these incredible patrons who are sponsoring other patrons. We've had dozens here in the last couple of days. You can also do that at dailybeanspod.com. It's $36. You can sponsor a patron for an entire year so they can get the premium feed and all the bonus content, access to the private social media groups and the Zoom call, happy hour stuff we do on Friday. Super fun.
So wonderful. So wonderful.
Yeah, that's so great. You guys are so giving.
Angels among us.
Indeed. All right. Thank you very much. Dana, do you have anything before we get out of here?
I do not. I just wish you all a very wonderful day and enjoy the stereo session tonight with Andrew and Allison.
Yep. And everybody tune in tomorrow for Cleanup on Aisle 45. You can search. Cleanup is one word when you're searching, just so you know. A lot of people haven't been able to find it because we made it one word. But that's how you get it. We're going to have some really great stories. We have great guests for that show as well. So everyone, please, until tomorrow, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of the planet, and take care of your mental health. I've been AG.
And I've been DG.
And them's the beans. The Daily Beans is directed, written, and hosted by executive producer Allison Gill and engineered and edited by Mackenzie Mazzell and Starburns Audio. Staff writers include Dana Goldberg, Amy Carrero, and Allison Gill. Our copy is written by Jesse Egan, and our marketing manager, executive assistant, and social media director is Kanai. Fact-checking and research by Allison Gill, Dana Goldberg, and Amy Carrero. Our music is written and performed by They Might Be Giants. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder and Moxie Design Studios. And our website is dailybeanspod.com. Hey everybody, do not miss our Daily Beans after party on the Stereo app. We'll be going live every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Dana and I want to hear from you. Our last Stereo show went a little bit like this.
Following the rules, making changes. You know,
Being
we're not even
ethical and
100 days
shit.
in. I'm sorry, what? Being ethical? I know. Who the fuck ever heard of that? For the last 4 years, we didn't remember any of that.
I want to have a shirt. Just out here being ethical and shit. I love it.
Oh my God.
All right, let's see what we got next here.
Rosie here. Raphael is a certified loon. He's goofy as a damn cartoon. Betrayed our great land. We don't understand. Fuck you, Ted. Go back to Cancun.
Thank you, Rosie. See, this is what I'm talking about. The creativity. Oh, that was a good one. Oh my God. Thank you. What a piece of shit.
I am getting real sick and tired too of people on Twitter and the social media saying Texas gets what it deserves.
No, yeah.
This is not the spirit of the Democratic Party. I have been saying forever, when we win back the White House, when we win Congress, every American deserves health care, access to education, it's just everything you put, the ballot box, right? Access to the ballot box, everything. Every American deserves that, no matter who you voted for. And that's that's what I wanted to set us. That's what sets us apart from Republicans.